Hello everybody and welcome back to another Tawny Man reading vlog. I have been reading this for a couple of days and it's been really hard for me to stop and record. So I'm already at chapter 6, so we're jumping into the beginning of this reading vlog already about 20% into the book, and it's just because there was not a lot of time to sit down and record, and I was not going to pause reading so that I could convey my thoughts. However, I have gotten a lot better about utilizing the actual tools of my Kindle. So I did save a bunch of passages to talk about so that I would not skip big things and could pose some theories or discuss some writing or whatever it is that I want to do during this vlog. So just an overview of the first 6 chapters. This is beautiful. The writing is gorgeous. I am very compelled to keep going. I'm trying to do a buddy read of a different book at the same time, and that book should be quicker to read because the writing is a little bit faster, like shorter, snappier sentences, much shorter chapters. And every time I get a minute, I just think, what if I read Golden Fool instead? So I'm just having a really hard time not reading this all the time. But I try to hide my Kindle upstairs and then pick it up in the night. But then the problem is that I read it too late and then I'm tired the next morning. So it's a lose situation when you're trying to resist the siren pull of Golden Fool. But overall, I have enjoyed these first 6 chapters. When I first went into this book, I assumed that it would be about Fitz and Dutiful's relationship and how they were going to interact with each other. And there hasn't been a ton of that interaction yet. They've gone on one ride outside together, and Fitz has agreed to teach him the skill. But then, of course, Dutiful didn't show up for his first lesson. So, typical teenage / preteen boy move. And it was really funny because Fitz was like, yeah, I remember that Birch used to have to like pound on my door to get me to come out and do my morning chores. So he was understanding of that. But I just finished the last chapter. Chapter 5 is where Fitz meets with Ketchikan for the first time in this book. And they grieve together over Night Eyes, which is really sad. And Ketchikan also tells him that she is going to be telling Dutiful who Fitz really is. So that is an interesting piece of information to note, because I assumed that this would happen. I assumed that he would find out Fitz's identity. I'm also curious about how much Ketchikan knows. They like talk around the idea of Dutiful's father all the time, and I don't know if there is some level of awareness on Ketchikan's part. I know it said in the last book that there was not, that the kind of skill brilliance was too high and that no one knew except the Fool, but we shall see what happens. But to get into the things that I actually flagged for this book, so I flagged different passages to come back and make a note of. And the first is just one of the things that I talked about in the last reading vlog, which was the nature of the relationship between Fitz and the Fool. And to be clear, right now on Fitz's side, because we're in Fitz's head, for him, I think the Fool is just a very significant person in his life. So, somebody that he feels comfortable with, someone who knows his true identity, somebody who is important to him. Do I think that there's any romantic feelings on Fitz's side? If there are, they're buried so deeply. It's not even a consideration for him right now. However, there have been many parts of this book that have fed, I don't know, call it my delusion or whatever, my theory about the Fool's thoughts towards Fitz and whether or not those thoughts lean romantic. So you start to see that there's some rumors or some beliefs that other people hold about the Fool that do suggest that he might have certain proclivities. And I mean, he outright hit on, what was that kid's name in the kid from the Whitted family, the noble kid from the Whitted family in the last book, and then admitted that to Fitz. But I think Fitz felt like the Fool was doing that just to be over the top, like that's something that would never actually enter his mind, and that he just did that to push that boy in a certain direction and make him angry. But there's a lot of hints. So there's a passage in chapter 1 where Fitz is talking to one of the guards at the front, or one of the guards at the gate, and says that he's Golden's servant. And the guard says, "Oh yeah, his servant and his bodyguard. I heard about that, and that isn't all I heard about him. You're not what I expected he'd choose to have by him." And like Fitz is also catching insults. Like every chapter, someone's talking about how unattractive or old he is, except for, coincidentally, the fool who seems to think he's beautiful in whatever he dresses him in. So there was that comment from one of the guards. Now, navigating the notes on this Kindle is not a fluid process. Even on the newer Kindles, they're still so slow to load. So that was one annotation that I made. And then there was another part. So this is in chapter 4, where they're getting dressed, and Fitz is looking at the fool, and he's painted the scales on his face, which I think is interesting. Looking back on Ship of Destiny, if we think about Malta's whole journey and how disgusted she was by any sign of change on the faces of the Rainwilders, and now it's become a fashion statement. So showing your dragon scales is a fashion statement that is spreading throughout the world. But anyway, he has his cheeks painted, and he sees Fitz looking at him, and it's the first time that the Fitz is kind of thrown off balance. He's like, "Well, what are you looking at?" And it seems very like shifty and embarrassed in a way where he's worried about what Fitz might think about him, or, what he looks like. So those are the little tiny threads of romantic tension that are in the book. Now, the rest of the things I have to talk about are more plot or writing centered. So I had initially flagged a part of the book about Chade's servant, Thick, and wondered if he had the skill, but then it came out like 10 pages later that he did in fact have the skill, and he was repelling Fitz and repelling everybody. So that's going to be interesting. I don't remember, I know the skill is in the Farseer line, but I don't remember if it's exclusively a Farseer thing. So I don't know if he is some a distant relative of the family, or if his lineage is going to become any more important, but he does in fact have the skill. And it's interesting that so many skilled people are kind of popping up one after another. I wonder if that is going to become something more, if there's going to be a new coterie, if there's going to be a new group, or if Fitz is going to continue to close himself off to the skill, and we'll see what happens. But it is interesting to see that there are other skilled users, and some very strong skilled users. And on that note, probably the most important thing that has happened since I started highlighting things was the end of chapter 4, I think. I just put a bunch of exclamation points in my note. And that was the scene where Fitz's daughter is breaking through his skill walls, where he's not sure, like, am I intoxicated from the smoke? Am I just tired from being at this party? Or is she really that strong? And that whole scene was a combination of adorable and sad and horrifying. Just, number one, her calling him Shadow Wolf, and then the way that she sees him as like a part wolf, part person. And she misses him and has recognized some connection to him. It makes me wonder, is she talking about this to anybody? Like, is she telling Burrich? Is she telling her mother? I don't know. But she clearly wants to strengthen this connection between them. And at the end, when Fitz is lying there, and the last line of the sentence is, "Was my daughter simply strong enough to break through them being his skill walls?" So the fact that she is also such a strong skill user, number one, makes me kind of worried, because right now she is off doing her thing, left alone by the Farseer family. And I think Kettricken has been very accommodating of Fitz's wishes. But if we remember, or at least if I remember correctly, all the way back to the original Farseer trilogy, I think even Kettricken had been like, you know what, if we don't have an heir, if there's nobody else, then she is the only option. I think. I'm not 100% sure. This is the problem with having left so much time, but I feel like everybody was on that train, and this problem of an heir had to be solved so that Fitz's daughter didn't get dragged into things. And I just feel like this is a long series. The Realm of the Elderlings is lengthy. Nettle is getting dragged into things one way or another, and I think her skill with the skill is going to be one of the things that makes that happen. So I am excited because I really want Fitz to get his family back. Like, I know that it's going to be messy if Birch learns that he's alive and Molly learns that he's alive and Nettle finds out who he is, but he deserves connections and he deserves to have people who know him and understand him. And it just makes me so sad that he's so lonely and so isolated. And I think it's going to be messy, but I really want him to have a relationship with his daughter. And I hope that it's a good relationship. I'm going to be watching this like video in the future and be like, haha, Sarah, I can't believe you ever thought that. I can't believe you ever said that. You're in for a world of pain, I'm sure. But I still would really like for that to happen. I think those are all the plotty things. No, the last plotty thing that I wanted to talk about was Chade's apprentice. So originally, when Chade first told Fitz that he had an apprentice and it was someone he knew, but he didn't want to talk about it because he felt like it would upset him, I originally thought that it was potentially his daughter. Because I was like, who else is there, right? Could it be Starling? No. Could it be this person? No. Who could it be that is significant to Fitz that Chade doesn't want to talk about? And then I was like, oh my gosh, is it Nettle? Like, is she being brought in as the secret Farseer heir, just the exact same way that Fitz had been? But then as I got, and this is the downfall of reading so far ahead before you stop and have your first conversation, is that some of your theories change before you even get to talk about them. So what I saw then was the young girl, and I just read this part last night, the girl who had spied on Kettricken for Regal. Why is her name escaping me when I just read it? I'm going to go back to here we go. Go back to the part, Rosemary. So Rosemary. Now I wonder if Rosemary is Chade's new assistant. Because Fitz keeps calling this assistant a boy and Chade just keeps calling them a person. And so I'm like, maybe they're a girl. And now that Rosemary is here, perhaps this is the secret new assassin apprentice. I call it an assistant, but an apprentice. So we shall see. The very last thing that I wanted to touch on, just to cover the full range of commentary when it comes to Realm of the Elderlings. We've talked about plot, we've talked about character, and now we're going to talk a little bit about writing. There's so many passages that I could highlight, but I highlighted one passage because I think I talk about writing a lot. I made that video about fantasy prose a long time ago, and writing is an easy thing to say, this author writes well. And then it's a harder thing to pull up examples because we don't often stop and do that when we're reading through books. So I've been trying hard to highlight passages that demonstrate for me the efficacy and the beauty of Robin Hobb's writing. So this is a very simple passage. It has no bearing on the story really whatsoever, but I think it's a good example of why Robin Hobb's writing is so worthy of praise. So this is when Fitz steps into the banquet hall for the first time. He's going to attend the betrothal ceremony. He's stepping into the hall, and it's a very different place than the one that he remembers. And he walks in and it says, "The dark that the hearth fires and candles had never been able to disperse had yielded, albeit grudgingly, to the overhead candelabras. Candelabras? Well, I ruined the sentence now. We'll start over. The dark that the hearth fires and candles had never been able to disperse had yielded, albeit grudgingly, to the overhead candelabras suspended by gilded chains over long blue clothed tables." That is a really beautiful way of saying the room is lighter now than it was when I used to come here when I was a kid. So it's just the way that she words it. So the dark that had never been able to disperse tells us what it was like in the past, had yielded, albeit grudgingly. So like change is slow. Not everybody might enjoy this change. To the overhead candelabras suspended by gilded chains. So we know how elevated things are, how different they are. And it's just a different atmosphere, right? It's a different atmosphere. And it's one beautiful sentence that tells us so much about how the landscape has changed, how things have shifted since Fitz was a boy. And actually that whole section was kind of funny to me. It was very boomer of Fitz to be like, things are different. I'm not sure that I like it. And it's also really sad because he feels so out of place and so isolated, and he recognizes that he's turning into an old man. But I thought it was really funny that he was not here for any of the changes that have happened at court. But just think about how much Robin Hobb can say in a single sentence, a single descriptive sentence that is not that important to the plot, that is a throwaway line that kind of fades into the background of paragraphs. It's very impressive. It is very impressive. I love Robin Hobb. She's so talented. I am super excited to continue. This first introductory part of this vlog is 15 minutes, almost 16 minutes long, so hopefully whoever's watching this enjoys. I will see you again soon. Okay, I'm starving. Andrew's gone to buy me a bagel. I haven't washed my face, and I have so many other things that I have already noted that I need to talk about, but I could not. I had to stop immediately because I just read the Jack chapter, and Fitz had a conversation and found out about Amber, and it was heartbreaking. I feel like I could cry right now. The layers of both miscommunication and also genuine hurt, because the Fool does hide things from Fitz, right? The Fool does have all these other facets of their personality, and Fitz already feels so alone, and the Fool was his comfort person, and everything that I've been talking about this whole time that I've been reading this book, and just the Fool's feelings and the sadness and horror that fell upon them as they came in and discovered that this identity was now clear to Fitz. And I still think that Fitz is upset about losing his friend, and he's upset about what he perceives as a betrayal. He feels that the Fool is the only person that he is honest with, and that one reprieve from the layers of lies and deception that encircle his whole life. And he just found out that he is behind all of those layers of lies and deception in the Fool's life. And I'm really sad because I feel like the Fool is going to think that Fitz is upset that they're in love with him. And I don't think that Fitz even genuinely believes or understands or comprehends. Like, I do not think that is what Fitz is angry about in any form. I think that Fitz thinks that this, like, being in love with him part of the Fool's personality belongs exclusively to this identity of Amber and not to the Fool as a whole, as a person. And so that is so far beyond what Fitz is even thinking about right now. I think it's just all hurt and sadness. And then you get Starling, and I'm so mad at Starling. I've been angry at Starling. Starling has been making Fitz feel like crap about himself the whole time. And every time he sees her, she's so nasty, because I think that part of her really wants Fitz to be in love with her, because she recognizes that Fitz is an important person, the kind of person that changes the world, the kind of person that is in important stories, who does important things. And so she, having been discarded by Fitz for reasons that are true to his sense of morality, she is now angry. And every time she talks to him, she's so mean to him, and it makes me so angry. And now Fitz is just off and feeling bad about himself. And I'm going to have to go back and discuss things that happened before this. So this is throwing off the structural integrity / timeline of this whole vlog. But I'm just having a lot of feelings, and I needed to talk about it. There's vacuuming happening downstairs, and I don't have a tripod, and I still haven't talked about any of the things that were important, but I just got to the part where Fitz and the Fool had their conversation, and it's why do I read these? I'm so sad. I have not been able to stop reading this book all day, and the Fool hurting hurts me so much, and I don't have anything else to say other than that. I lied. The fool just found out that it was not Fitz putting flowers on his tray, and I am emotionally devastated. There's so, like, there are quotes in this whole passage that I probably should read out loud because they're really good. But I can't because the fool has flowers in their pocket and they're not from Fitz. And I'm not ready to work through that emotionally. So there's no way that I'm reading passages, but just know that this book has hurt me and I should have known that it would. Okay, my Kindle died, which gave me time to take a pause from Golden Fool, which forced me to take a pause from Golden Fool because otherwise I think I just would have read it all day long without stopping. But it was a forced pause, which was good because it gave me some time to think and absorb what had been happening and gave me time to go back. Now that my Kindle is charged, I let it get to 77%. That's when I just kept looking over and being like, maybe I should take it now. So anyway, I'm about to jump back into it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've been kind of glossing over or didn't have time to talk about amidst the outpouring of grief that was happening. So I think a lot of the notes that I have made, so when I did my first big check-in, we had stopped at the part where we found out that Nettle was forcing her skill dreams on Fitz. And most of the things that I have highlighted, because I'm just taking a glance through the notes that I made on my Kindle, mostly have to do with relationships and Fitz. So I think it's interesting to see how he relates to the people that he used to know now that he's an adult. So seeing him with Kettricken, seeing him with Chade, I think the exchanges with Chade in particular are very interesting and sad because you can see how circumstances has warped Chade into the person that he is. And now that Fitz is older, you can also see where they have diverged in their approach to what it means to be a Farseer, how the Farseer line has treated them, what bitterness Chade has about the life that he has led. And it's also really sad to see him age, and it's hard to tell so far if what is happening to him is normal aging, where he was an incredibly sharp-witted person who kept track of so many things. He was the eyes and ears of the castle. He was one of the smartest people at court for the Farseers, and now he can't keep track of things, and he's having to repeat stories over and over. And I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Is this going to turn into something neurocognitive? Like, is he losing his memories at a faster rate? Like, is this supposed to signal some sort of neurocognitive disorder, which we would call dementia, something like that? Or is it just that he is elderly? Or is it that he is always taking these potions, concoctions, drugs, whatever, mixtures to help him stay awake, to help him interact with people, to help him maintain a youthful appearance, a youthful body? Are those things finally catching up to him? Hard to know, and I don't think we're going to get a clear answer on that until more time has passed. But certainly he is more short-tempered, or seems to be more short-tempered, especially when he forgets something or when he is ashamed of not knowing as much as he would have known in the past. And that's really, really hard to see. One relationship that I do really like in this book is the relationship between Fitz and Jinna. And I think it highlights some of the best parts of Fitz and some of the worst parts of Fitz. So one thing that I've noticed that is just an example of Hobbs' excellent characterization. We know that Fitz is a flawed character, right? He's probably harsher on himself than he deserves. And there's certainly a part of the book where Jinna says to him, you're not responsible for every bad thing that ever happens, right? Hap is messing up. He's out. He's making trouble for himself. He's making his own bad choices. You don't have to take responsibility for everything. Like, not everything is your fault. You don't need to apologize on his behalf all the time. But then on the opposite side, we do see Fitz kind of putting off important conversations with Hap, putting off important conversations with Dutiful, just hoping that, I'm going to get around to it. And as a chronic procrastinator, I feel that so much. And it's not even necessarily conflict avoidance. There's lots of conflict in my job in general, and it is not something that I have a lot of problem with, jumping into it, trying to work through it. But procrastination, I do understand intimately. And there's different reasons why people procrastinate different things. But as Fitz was like, I really need to talk to him, but I just didn't, and I need to. I felt that in my soul. Jenna in general, I did like the part where they had their time together, their intimate time, and then she, I think, had likely been more invested emotionally than Fitz was, and then she saw him with, I can never remember the huntswoman's name, and I don't know why, but it can never stick. Even in the last vlog, I remember Laurel. There we go. It never sticks in my brain. But when she saw him with Laurel, even though it was innocent, it was just a friendly gesture, he then would not go back and see her. And they finally have now patched their friendship. And it seems like it's going to be more of a, a true platonic friendship moving forward without any of the extra intimacy. So I did like when she stood up for herself. And I just like her as a character. I think she's really interesting. If she's betraying anyone, I'm going to be so sad. Please don't let that happen. Let her just be, a good, nice hedge witch, please. That is my request. I'm very intrigued by Narcheska. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Eliana, the young girl from, I'm gonna tell you now, as a Newfoundlander, every time I see Out Islands written as it is in this book, all as one word, Out Islands, Out Islanders, I want to call them Outislanders because in my mind, all I hear is Newfoundlander. And so that when I read the book, my brain like imprints on that lander part, and it doesn't want to say island, like islanders. It wants to say landers. So I want to say Outislanders. And every time that I'm doing this, I'm like, please don't say that, Sarah. Don't say it. Because obviously it's the Out Islands and they are Out Islanders, but I cannot get it. When I'm reading it, that's how it comes out in my brain, is Outislander. The Out Islanders. Interesting. I like the matriarchal society. I am very intrigued by the tattoos that she seems to have on her back that are giving her pain. It's hard to know. It's fun to see as Fitz sees these very tiny snippets of information and to try to process them as he's processing them. Obviously, we're going to find out more, and now Dutiful is going to go on this quest. Do I think Fitz is going to end up going with him? Probably. I can't imagine that huge chunk of the story is going to take place without us following along, but it could. Who knows? And the last, I think the other outstanding mystery is who is communicating with Fitz at these times when he requires support or help, and he hears this voice, and at one point he thought it was some unknown person. It sounded like Verity. At one point it sounded like Night Eyes. At one point he wondered if it was his own thoughts. I don't know. At one point I thought it was the Fool, and that it was through that little bit of skill link that is between them. I don't know if that is the case anymore. Maybe it's one of the old blood that he was with before, the man that he thinks has the skill and the wit together. I'm not sure, but I am also intrigued by that little bit of mystery, intrigue. What else did I highlight? I highlighted a couple of the passages where Fitz finally starts to feel empathy for Thick, and I'm hoping that will lead to them being able to form some sort of bond, that he won't dislike him as much and that he can help him, because those passages made me really sad too. There's a part when he asked him what he wanted, like, if I could give you anything, and he asked for like some treats and a cake and then a whistle, and it's just like, it's heartbreaking to see those parts. So I am hoping that relationship might improve a little bit as well. And otherwise, it's Nettle keeps coming up and up and up, and I'm just waiting for the moment where she enters the story fully. I don't know if that's going to happen in this trilogy, but I am certain that it will happen before the end of the Realm of the Elderlings as a whole. So we shall see what happens. I am braving the novel. I'm going to jump back in there and see what happens. And I don't know, right now I'm at I think it's the 60%. I don't know how to get rid of these notes now that I have brought them up. Here we go. So I'm at the 60% mark. So we'll see if I do one more check-in or if it's just going to be a final check-in. It's going to depend on how intense things are. And frankly, this is already very long. So we shall see in a little while. So I'm back. I was crying, but it's gone now. This book, man, it's just, I know everybody said that Fool's Errand was going to hurt, and so I knew it was going to hurt. And I kind of, by the time I had read any portion of it, I knew why it was going to hurt. I did not expect Golden Fool to make, every time I read something, it feels like my whole chest is being scooped out because there are just so many painful things happening. So I just read the part where Fitz sees Burrich from behind the screen, decides not to tell him that he's alive, goes into town, and then Svanya, I can't remember if that's the girl's name that Hap is dating, or is his one true love forever, as he explains it. His one true love forever is her dad comes to the bar and smacks Fitz in the face with a tankard, and then they get into a big fight. And Hap obviously takes his side, and they have a big fight. And then Fitz feels like he has just failed. And it really resonated with me in parenting older children. So one way that parenthood changes, or at least has changed for me as kids get older, is that you feel like you have tried really hard to instill certain things, whether it's a work ethic or a sense of morality or behavior, or the choices that you feel are best for them to make. And at the end of the day, they are people, and they are going to make mistakes. And sometimes you're going to take that personally, even though you shouldn't, right? Because you feel like it's a reflection of the way that you have taught them. And it can be so painful when things don't go the way that you want it, both from a, this hurts perspective to a have I failed perspective to a guilt perspective. And it just all compounds. And this incident between Fitz and Hap was that kind of painful. It was so hard. And like at one point I want to shake Hap and be like, oh yes, your one true love forever. She's, you're both 16 years old or something. But it's also just, it's so good. Robin Hobb is so good. This book is just making me feel like I am being sliced into pieces, and I love it. I love it, but I hate it. I don't know. I'm gonna go continue to read it. Keep Watch Night Eyes might be the saddest ending to any chapter that I've ever read. It is the next morning. I finished Golden Fool at, I'm gonna say 12:30 this morning, and it was worth staying up late for, but I didn't make any more notes. I don't have any more helpful things to go back and flag. We're just ending this vlog on vibes, but I feel like I did pretty well in terms of touching on the plot and highlighting things that I liked, unlike the first book where it was just a free-for-all until the end. But how far did we get? I feel like the last time, I don't even remember what I checked in about last time, but there were lots of things that happened, lots of sad things. So I'll touch on the final things that I remember that stuck out the most. Fitz saving Sybil, who is that child that I was talking about earlier, his name Sybil now in there. So Fitz saving Sybil's life and then ending up in the dungeon, which obviously brought back memories of being in Regal's dungeon, which brought back memories of Night Eyes. Everything about that was sad. I think actually I did check in about that briefly because I did make the comment that when he said watch over me, Night Eyes, that was the last thing that I commented on. So that was the point that I was at when I just read the rest from there. But the aftermath of that, him almost dying, the coterie coming together, called it the coterie. They came together and saved Fitz. It was brutal to see what that did to him, but also interesting to see them all come together, and really sad for the Fool, the part where the Fool said, I can't watch you die anymore. That was really sad. And the whole tension between them, and I understand why the Fool totally closed himself off to Fitz, because he confessed his feelings. He was pushed into it. Number one, he would have been content enough to love Fitz from the side, to be his friend, to be what he needed, and Fitz had to push. And interestingly, in a reaction that was very reminiscent of Burrich's reaction when he caught Fitz using the skill, which is to say a lot of anger that potentially comes from a place of shame. We'll see. I don't know if Fitz's opinions on this are going to change throughout the rest of the series, but as someone who is fueled by like the pain of unrequited love, I hope this is not the end of this subplot. I don't know. This might be a subplot that other people hate, but this kind of like painful undercurrent of a romance, it fuels me. So I am so hurt and sad, but also I did really like the tension that was between them afterwards, because I could see where the Fool was coming from. I could see outside of Fitz's reactions, like Fitz reacted very badly and I was very upset with him and it was awful and terrible and made me feel so sad. And I was just like in my head screaming the whole time, this is how people react to you being witted and you hate it. And why are you being this way? And as I said before, I think there's probably some unresolved things that are in there that Fitz does not want to come to terms with right now. So I was upset at him at that point, but all the rest of the things that happened between them, I could understand. And I did like it when they made up and Fitz called him beloved. And, you know, then they said they were going to be Fitz and the Fool to each other. The Fool coming clean about his tattoos and then Fitz turning around and telling Chade was also really sad. And I don't for a second think that the Fool is going to be left out of this expedition. The Fool is getting to this place, I don't even know what I'm going to call it, to the out islands, to the glacier that they're going to. If the only thing that is getting me through the anticipation of the next book is knowing that the final trilogy is called Fitz and the Fool. There's no way that the Fool can die knowing that the final trilogy is called Fitz and the Fool. So I'm going to cling to that, again, that delusion throughout my reading experience of the next book. The Fool cannot die because the Fool will be around at the end of the series. So I say, so it must be so. Other things that made me sad. Jenna, I was on your side. Jenna, I was there for you, putting in boundaries for Fitz and calling him out when he was not being a good friend. And you turned around and you were a prejudiced shitbag. Sorry for swearing at the very end of this vlog, but you were. So I don't like you anymore. Sorry. So we got past that part. Burrich, Robin Hobb is so good at doing this. I understand exactly where Burrich is coming from, and I'm still mad at him because his son seems so sweet. Now it is going to give us the opportunity to see Fitz have Burrich's son as his little foundling or the person that he's going to look out for, which is a full circle moment, but it still makes me really sad. And the threads of their lives are just getting closer and closer. So they're going to be off continent or off Six Duchies for the next book. So I'm assuming there's not going to be a ton of progress on the whole Nettle Fitz interconnected families thing, but it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. Anything else that I wanted to say? I don't think so. Yes, there is. I think Golden Fool is even better than Fool's Errand, which I'm sure is going to be an unpopular opinion. I read a couple of reviews from friends that said that this felt like a middle book to them. This does not feel like a middle book to me. Number one, this whole series, minus Live Ship, so like all of the Fitz books feel like just a recounting of Fitz's life. And there is no middle book in your life, right? There is no middle book syndrome when the book is your life. Why did I like Golden Fool? 5 stars, by the way, 10 stars, 20 stars, I don't know. Why did I like it so much? Because this is Robin Hobb doing what she is best at. Number one, messy, complex interpersonal relations, long, slow, meandering looks through people's lives and the decisions they make and how that affects them, and beautiful writing. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I could read 10,000 pages of this book with all of the same things just happening. There does not have to be a kidnapped prince plot. There does not have to be the same intense focus on the pieballs. There does not have to be anything except Fitz living his life and the pain of all of the things that are happening to him. That's all that I need. So I know that, again, for other people, the next book, Fool's Fate, is their favorite book in the series, or their favorite book ever for some of my friends. So I do think that I'm gonna like that one. Maybe I'll just like every book more than the last one because you're just learning more. Robin Hobb is just building more on the characters that you already love. So I don't know, but I now have a new favorite book of the year, and it's Golden Fool, and it made me feel like I was dying in a way that I really enjoyed. I would love to trash my whole TBR and just read Fool's Fate, but I'm not going to. I think I have gone back to my buddy read. I'm going to try to read through the things that I already needed to read and then get to Fool's Fate. So this is a very, very long vlog with questionable lighting and me in all states of emotional duress. So I apologize, or you're welcome, depending on your opinion about these things, but I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will try to do this again for the final book in the trilogy. Bye!